The book of Luke, chapter 21, verses 5 through 19. And as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with noble stones and offerings, he said, "As for these things which you see, the days will come when there shall not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." And they asked him, "Teacher, when will this be? And what will be the sign when this is about to take place?" And he said, "Take heed that you are not led astray, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am he,' and 'the time is at hand.' Do not go after them. And when you hear of wars and tumults, do not be terrified, for this must first take place, but the end will not be at once." Then he said to them, "Nations will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. But before all this, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors for my name's sake. This will be a time for you to bear testimony. Settle it therefore in your minds not to meditate beforehand how to answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which none of your adversaries will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be delivered up even by parents and brothers and kinsmen and friends, and some of you they will put to death. You will be hated by all for my name's sake. But not a hair on your head will perish. By your endurance you will gain your lives." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm dost bind the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee for those in peril on the sea. It's my dad who introduced me to this hymn. And no, coming from a jarhead, it's not the Marine hymn. It's the naval hymn. And I think he latched onto that because deep in his heart, he knew that the Marine hymn isn't really a hymn. It's a march. And he loved it, and he knew all the words to that one. In fact, he knew the words to that one better than he did this one. But he introduced me to this one when I was a young pianist, just finally getting my fingers onto the keyboard to the place where I could start to play from the hymnals. And he pulled out a hymnal, and he found this hymn, and he said, "Play this one for me." And from that moment on, this tune and these words held a special place in my heart. As I grew older and into my faith, I came to recognize the comfort that I found in these words, and aligning myself a little bit with my father, who was aligning himself with so many who had served in the naval traditions of the United States Navy and Marine Corps, who found comfort in these words. Loss when it's performed and sung at funerals in times of remembrance. It's a hymn that gives me hope, reminds me of a God who transcends the waves, who rides with us through stormy seas, and who is present in difficult times. Will you pray with me for a moment? Gracious and giving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. It's another one of those days when I couldn't have picked the text better myself. This was the lectionary reading, the foretelling of the destruction of the temple, and it sounds like the perfect text to have after the completion of any presidential election. I'm glad we can laugh, because we know so many in our country today who are not laughing. And if we look back, we saw much the same 8 years ago, a triumphant half, a despondent half. And if we go back 8 years before that, we see much the same. A triumphant half, a despondent half. If I've learned anything through watching these cycles of the coming and going of elections, the coming and going of political parties and presidential figures, there is one thing that is true. There's always somebody who is happy and somebody who is not. As for the things that you are admiring, that time is coming when not even one stone will be left upon another, and all will be demolished. I can't tell you how many times I've written this sermon. Today, I'm also dealing with the technological failure, hence the paper version. But every time I put these words together, it turned into a lecture. It almost became a scolding. And the last thing that we need as a people in the wake of this most divisive cycle, this 4-year verbal blood sport in which we engage, the last thing we need is a scolding. But what we do need, I think, is a reminder. Jesus wasn't the first to foretell, to foresee destructions and the tearing down of things. Wasn't the last either. He and the people around him were not the first to live through difficult times, nor were they the last. We find ourselves continuing through these cycles of creation and destruction and creation and destruction, and when it comes to the political scene, we'll argue about whether we're in a cycle of creation or destruction. But the one common that I am seeing in all of these cycles, the one thing that I have recognized over the past 16 years of election cycles, 3 presidential changes of power now, is that there was always somebody in the wake of the elections who experienced and felt fear. Every time, every election, we emerge from the ruins of the tearing down of our temple, which is one of the constitutional gifts of our country, is that we throw a revolution every 2 or 4 years and start again. But in the wake of that chaos, there are people who will be afraid. In this instance, we hear those who are afraid that our president-elect may try to take away some of their rights, or that he may have emboldened those who will. We know those who are experiencing a sudden rise in hate crimes in the wake of this election. The Southern Poverty Law Center has reported and recorded 101 incidences of hate-related activity since the end of the election on Tuesday up to the closing of business at their office on Friday afternoon. And there are people who are afraid. But they're not the only ones. They haven't been the only ones. We go back 8 years and we see the same type of cycle amongst a different set of people. Perhaps it were those who was afraid a democratic organization and institution might strengthen the restrictions on firearms, and we saw a sudden increase in sales. This is a fear response as well. And how often have we listened as those on the left who express fear, those on the right who express fear, if they don't align with our views, if we don't understand why they're afraid, We discount it. We poo-poo those feelings. That's not going to happen. It's unwarranted. It's ungrounded. Why are you afraid? We would never do these things. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if those who are afraid are ultimately right. Those who can explain that logically your fears are unfounded are ultimately right. The reality of our situation is every cycle we emerge with people in this country who are scared. Warranted or not, it matters not. People are experiencing and feeling fear. That should concern us as people of faith, that our neighbors are afraid. That should concern us as people of faith when we are the ones who are afraid. And it should concern us as people of faith when our first response is to explain away someone's fears, or when our first response is to be okay while others explain away their fears. Where were we the last cycle when it was our time to be afraid? How did we feel when someone told us, don't worry, your fears aren't founded. That's not going to happen. It really doesn't matter if what we fear comes true or not. It matters that we are afraid. And if this election has taught us anything, it's that people are willing to act out of this fear. People are willing to vote out of their fears and to respond out of those fears. And it feeds into a cycle of ignoring and not listening that we repeat every election. We wonder why we have to come off Election Day and start calling for ways that we can reunite as a people. We just spent a year and a half explaining all the ways that we were different and we can't be united. And I wonder if some of it is that we just can't hear one another. We're unable, or worse, unwilling to listen. When I am convinced that logically I can explain to you why you have no reason to be afraid, I'm not listening to you anymore. I'm telling you that your fears don't matter because it'll be okay. I can't make that right for you. I can't absolve that fear. I can't resolve the conflict within you. What I should have been doing was listening and saying, why is it you're afraid? Tell me. I think we could learn an amazing amount from one another if we were willing to be and vulnerable. To step back and say, it is all right that you're afraid, and I'm going to listen, even when I don't agree with why you feel your fear. I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to hear you. I've seen a couple of amazing things happen this week, and they had nothing to do with the elections, thank God. They had everything to do with this community. At two separate events, fellowship gatherings, to which Yuki and I were invited as an opportunity to kind of meet and greet folks over a meal and get to know you and get to learn a bit about you, I experienced a community that came together and told stories about themselves, and we listened. And I was amazed that at both events afterward, I heard remarks about how I learned something about this person that I've been sitting in this church with for years that I didn't know. That, my friends, is incredible. And I learned things about you all that I am already forgetting, and you'll have to remind me again, so bear with me. But I heard amazing stories, and I heard moments where people were vulnerable about the things that were going on in their lives, where they shared concerns and hurts, and I saw other people listen. Imagine what would happen if Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Independents, Greens sat back and listened when we started expressing our fears and our concerns to one another. Because what happened here was beautiful and amazing, and frankly, the gospel. I titled this message, A Gospel for Challenging Times, because what's more challenging than Jesus saying, the temple is coming down, everything you know is going to fall. But I'll tell you a secret. The gospel for challenging times, you already know it. It's just the gospel. embrace the love of God and share that love with one another. As you receive compassion from the Christ, extend that same compassion to those around you. As you are embraced by the Spirit, be Spirit-filled so that you might embrace one another. There is no gospel playbook for challenging times. It's just the gospel. And we have to find ways to start hearing one another out and listening. Doesn't matter whether we know that your fears are unfounded, we need to be able to acknowledge that we are afraid. We need to be compassionate when our neighbors say, I'm hurting. We need to not try to lift our friends out of their despair when they aren't settled, when they're uneasy with the results. We just need to be present with them and say, I feel you, and I've been there too. You all gave me hope this week. You all gave me hope in the face of a nation that is taking it away from me. I hope you all can experience that hope and give it to one another. Because if there's any way that we are going to change the world as Christians, it's to be loving and caring and embracing each other right here and right now, and like a stone that is thrown into the lake, let the ripples echo outward and see what happens. You are not Jesus, neither am I. I don't care how much you think my hair looks like him, I'm not. You and I won't change the world on our own, but we might be surprised what we can accomplish together. That's the gospel for challenging times. Be with one another, hear one another out, and be compassionate. That's what we need. That's your gospel for challenging times. I pray that wasn't the scolding that was contained on these pages. Because I tried, I just couldn't get there. But I pray that we can come together and be compassionate, and we can calmly hear each other out and show God's love and be loved. So I'm going to close this out with the second verse of that hymn, if I can get through it. It speaks to who is with us in this moment and reminds us of our call as well to be with one another in this and so many challenging moments. O Savior, whose almighty word the winds and waves submissive heard, who walked upon the foaming deep and calm amid the rage did sleep. O hear us when we cry to thee for those in peril on the sea. May we be God on this perilous sea. Amen.